I'm a person that gets excited about things, big things, little things, doesn't really matter. Today, I'm excited to speak to my guest. Welcome to Small Talk.
Any and all are welcome here to come and chat with me.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's a beautiful sunny day, which means a great day for an interview. What do you think, right? So I'd like to welcome today's guest, Kryshan Randel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You have some an interesting career, right? You've directed a number of short films. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I guess over the years, I directed a lot of work for hire, but then I guess my passion has been dark comedy and horror films. So I've had a few that have done well at festivals over the years, and played Fantasia and Sitges and some of the more well-regarded festivals in previous years. And then I've made other films since then. Some of them have also done well at festivals, and some of them have been kind of more projects to try out working with different people or try out different artistic risks or things like that. And even the less successful ones have taught me things that I've used on director for hire projects that I've worked with some of the same people or use some of the same skills. I try to do at least one passion project every year, just put my own money in to make something and take bigger risks than I do on some of my for hire stuff.
So when did you first get interested in doing films or directing films?
My whole life, really. Even at the age of like 6 or 7, my parents rented a VHS camera, and I would shoot films for 1 or 2 weekends in the summer with my family. There's kind of my first cast. It was just even before 6 years old, it was the only thing that could get me to sit still was watching films. And I remember I could sometimes remember movies better than my own life, and I would sort of recall them to my friends and family, scene by scene. And then as I got older, I had one of the first film programs, possibly the first film program in high school in BC. In Richmond, there was a production program starting when I was 16, and my dad got me a camera to officially own that same year for Christmas. So by that point, I was just making films all the time. And then I went to film school almost immediately after high school and started working in the film industry. And it's been 22 years since then. So just been my whole life has kind of been a big part of everything.
Awesome. So, okay. So do you choose like when you're directing for your own, like you choose the actors and everything? Do you write the play or the film?
It's not always up to me. Sometimes I do cast the actors, but sometimes it's up to the producers that hire me or bring me on. So every project is very different. And I have written scripts for some of my own projects, but for the most part, I usually work with other screenwriters, and sometimes they're also the producers as well. So it's sort of every project's so different. It's kind of hard to generalize. I generally prefer working with other writers, but it helps if they have similar taste, but just kind of more experience in the field. Sometimes when I have written my own projects, they've just been so personal that I felt like I just had to put more personal investment in, but I do prefer directing overall.
Okay. So how does a film get into a festival?
It just has to be the right fit for the festival, I guess. The short films that have had the most success have been kind of dark comedy / horror films. There was the film Jack, which was like a pumpkin revenge horror film, and then another one which was an after school special with power tools and bullies called The Bully Solution, and they're both kind of dark and twisted. And I sent those out to mostly genre festivals, and then they both did really well at playing at festivals like Sitges, Fantasia, Screamfest, a lot of the more renowned festivals in North America and Europe mostly. And I started getting some of my first directing jobs out of those short films. But I think it helped that they're both a bit edgy, and in one case, one of them was kind of maybe controversial. Even some of the festivals that rejected us were showing it to their friends in their backyards, kind of like, oh, can you believe he did that sort of thing? So I guess they both have particular niches for those kind of festivals. But honestly, outside of the genre festivals, I haven't always had as much success with some of my other films. I spent like 2 years on and off working on a short film that I got a rather large grant for. And I thought I would do a lot better than it did. But then the other two films, the horror films that did well, I literally made in some weekends with no money with my friends, or almost no money, basically, comparatively.
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to take off. Sometimes it's not always what you spend the most time and money on.
The fact that you went to a film school, would you suggest that for anybody who wants to get into whether it's directing or producing or whatever?
Depends what your goals are. I mean, if someone has a lot of initiative and they, it's not like you have to go to film school, I guess, to start working on sets or start making projects. People have their own drive and initiative. It's possible they can, make films on weekends and start getting jobs on set as a PA and kind of learn by doing on set. But there is something about film school that's special about being able to make risks or take risks and, make, I guess, quote unquote, mistakes that are less in the public view, like to just try all sorts of things and learn equipment and, do things that are the less pressure of dealing on a set. And also the network really, really helps. There's a lot of like-minded people that you can work with, and everyone can kind of look out for each other afterwards and get each other hired on their first jobs and give each other advice and kind of be more of a team at the beginning of everything. And so there's definitely advantages to film school, but it's not necessarily for everyone. And it's not like being a doctor where you kind of have to have mandatory education.
Right.
A lot of the business is also just hustle and knowing the right people and doing things no matter what. So,
okay. So there's no, so you don't, I was just thinking about like in order to get hired, you don't need those credentials behind you.
No. I mean, maybe for some jobs, it helps to have a certain amount of educational experience,
right.
Can be more helpful for certain jobs. But for the most part, it's a lot of it's just, hard work ethic, quick learning, positive attitude, adapting really well, things like that. And just kind of learning by doing really fast. I mean, most people don't start off at a high level right away. So they might start just as a production assistant or doing anything. But if people, have the right attitude and they talk to maybe a different department while they're on set, they can kind of navigate sideways into a different job and learn by doing and things like that. And sometimes get bigger opportunities with earning less money, but working on independent projects. It's a really supportive community here for that. So, so I think for most jobs in the industry, it's not essential to go to film school, but there can be enormous positive reasons to go as well. Right. Even just for the reasons to take risks and try out a bunch of equipment and make a lot of mistakes without anyone really knowing, and get each other hired after film school and stuff. So
you're also an editor, right?
I am. Yeah, I've been doing that on and off for 20 years as well. I haven't made it as much of a big focus lately. My favorite things are directing and camera work, and sometimes producing and sometimes teaching. And editing I enjoy in some cases, but lately I've often hired assistant editors to kind of like start the project or visual effects or color correction people to kind of polish. I like the part of editing where I can really find the story of something or like put the puzzle pieces together. I really like that part, but with all the extra screen time during COVID, I kind of prioritized directing and shooting and things that kind of got me out more when I could.
Right. Yeah, I admire anybody who likes editing. I used to have an editor for my show. I hate that part, so I don't do it. So I just put out the raw footage, But you've done some interesting editing for some interesting companies, right? Or businesses. You want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess a lot of the camera work and editing that I do is for promotional or corporate type use. And sometimes the directing too, although that transfers into sometimes experimental or creative realms with some of the short films and web series and even some of the ads and things I've done. I guess with some of the more promotional or corporate work, it's always fun if I can do something a bit outside the box. Like like sell a message for something, but something that I believe in and something that could be done in kind of a non-traditional way or a creative way, even if it is for a more, I guess, usually traditional corporate client. It's always fun when I get the chance to add in some animation or time lapse, or tell a story in a different way, or even make it resemble a certain genre or a certain type of movie or things like that. And I've been lucky because more often than not, I've gotten the chance to do that. It's a lot of the clients have also been looking for something non-traditional, or sometimes that's even the reason that they hire me, is to treat it like a film or to tell a story, and not having it be risk being too earnest or too academic, I guess, like finding a way to have some really clever visuals, or different kinds of media, or feeling like a certain film genre or things like that. And even when I used to shoot and edit weddings, for example, like I had a client that wanted one like When Harry Met Sally, so I was intercutting footage of when they first met, or a footage of the two of them sitting on a couch talking about when they first met, with like very, kind of more, I guess, passionate, vibrant footage of them at the wedding. So just making it feel like their favorite romantic comedy, even with something that could be done in a much more traditional way. And then I've done videos over the years for Crazy Eights, which is like a very significant short film event in town. And over the years, I've tried different things like a It's a Wonderful Life kind of version of the world that would exist with Crazy Eights, the world that would exist without Crazy Eights, and the founder of Crazy Eights, or co-founder, imagining life with Crazy Eights and imagining it without, via like this mentor and a hot tub time machine. So like lots of kind of irreverent South Park comedy version of promoting the event, but in a way that kind of follows a few really fun story templates and kind of reinvents them. And then another Crazy Eights opening, I made it look like the entire city was a neighborhood of filmmakers, and I used time lapse, or hired a time lapse company to kind of like knock on doors in a community in a visual way, as like, or actually I'm not really explaining it right, but behind each door of a neighborhood was like a different year of Crazy Eights films. Oh. So each time you open a door, that's a different year, and it brings you into that year. And just very non-traditional way of bringing informational type stuff to life. So, yeah.
What did you do for Netflix?
I've shot. I'm in the camera union currently, in 669. So for the last, I guess 7 or 8 years, I've been in the union, and I've shot behind the scenes for Netflix and Legendary Pictures and BBC and some of the other kind of studios and television stations, or television streaming services, I guess these days more. But yeah, so with behind the scenes, I've also had the opportunity to do things outside the box a lot too, which has been good. Sometimes it's a bit more traditional information, with an actor maybe talking on camera about how they've done, their performance, or seeing how they did makeup or visual effects or stunts for a scene, or kind of revealing information, which is nice because that's what I grew up on. Is a lot of how I learned about filmmaking was DVD special features, especially really epic ones like Lord of the Rings or the David Fincher ones. So it was nice to become involved in making that content. And sometimes I've been able to do some really creative stuff working with actors. Like, I worked with, there's a film Child's Play. I worked with one of the actors on that film, and she was doing Halloween pranks for the cast. Right. And we got to kind of invent pranks on the child actors. And she had that kind of personality where she could come up with pranks to do on camera, and sort of conspire on that together. I'm not sure I should mention her name or not, because I forget if I signed an NDA or not for that particular actor, but to be honest, but one actor I can mention is, I worked with Ted Danson and Mary Steenburgen and Peter Gallagher, and there was a crossover. So it was kind of under the behind the scenes category. I was hired as behind the scenes, and I was technically doing behind the scenes, but the actors were playing versions of themselves, where Ted Danson was trying to tap dance his way onto Mary Steenburgen's show, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and his show was The Good Place. And it was kind of almost like a Saturday Night Live sketch version of actors playing versions of themselves and doing a sketch piece that the publicist of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist had come up with the idea. And I got hired a few days before, and I was able to kind of shoot and direct and essentially be kind of a one-man crew for getting that piece, which is nice because it combined a lot of my skills over my career into kind of one really fun day.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating, really. It sounds fun. Now, you also, did you do some work for Disney?
Yes, I with Disney, it was similar kind of work as well, where I was doing behind the scenes for a few of their productions as well. Yeah.
Right. So are you working on something currently?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm mostly working on short stories and essays that are based on my own life, actually. So I guess during the pandemic, a lot of my film work slowed down, and even though it's starting to come back more now, it gave me an opportunity to explore other parts of my life. And so I'm kind of writing about that process. I was trying to bring joy and creativity to people in different ways. And one of the first people I met after the initial lockdown was a French DJ that had like silent disco headsets, and he didn't know all of the best places necessarily to bring the headsets. And so I told him different beaches and parks and places he could go to play his own music and play other music on other channels. There's up to 5 channels of music that could be played at any given time. So to kind of give people the gift of, or be part of giving people the gift of dance in a time where, dance wasn't allowed. It kind of came back about a month ago.
Right.
But it was all safe. It was all, small amounts of people, socially distanced, all that sort of thing, sanitizing the headsets and all that. But people were overjoyed just to have the opportunity to kind of dance outside. And because they were silent disco headsets, they didn't create any noise for anyone, things like that. And I had other opportunities to kind of do small, secret, safe things for people over the pandemic. And so I've been kind of, I guess, creatively inspired to write about that and other stories about that part of my life, and learning how to DJ and being able to do that more lately. And also another big part of my life, which has been running events that kind of are similar to making a film, I guess. Like I'd hire a cinematographer, hire a production designer, kind of make it feel like people are inside of movie sets when they go in and out of different rooms. So it was at a previous shared house I was at with filmmakers, and most of the furniture was from film and TV shows that we bought. And then we would rent the place out to productions and then do big theme events. And then once the pandemic happened, that slowed down, but we're starting to kind of talk about bringing that back again at our new place, and also starting to rent our new place out to production. So I guess it's kind of just about different ways to kind of bring joy and creative opportunities for people through events. And it's something that I've been enjoying just as much as filmmaking these days, I guess, kind of equally. Just a different way to kind of, I guess, hire people that are better than me at really specific things, and then try to create a safe and creative environment where their best creative selves can be expressed. And then in the case of events, having people invited to those events that also feel incredibly creative and joyous. And I guess the kind of most conscious creative part of partying sort of thing. So I've been, writing about that. And then also just kind of keeping an eye out for dark comedy horror scripts that I could direct. And then in the coming months, I'll sort of dust off some old scripts that I applied to grants with, and see what funding there is out there to reapply with, or potentially look at private investors or things like that to find alternative ways to get a first feature made. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Now you also host events, and you do karaoke and dancing. You mentioned dancing, so I like that. So I'm just sort of curious, and skiing. When do you have time with all that you're doing? When do you have time for your hobbies?
Well, I don't think my biography is as busy as it makes it sound necessarily.
Okay.
I guess because my work changes all the time. Sometimes I'll work on a project for like 2 months straight, almost every day, especially if it's the directing job. But then sometimes I'll have a fair amount of time off or time between projects for months at a time. So I might be working, 1 to 3 days a week on hired work, but then I'll have flexibility with my own time for my own passion projects, writing and DJing and things like that. But then also time to go skiing in the winter, do volleyball in the summer, and karaoke I haven't really done much of in the last few years, but it's coming back now, so I'll do more of that soon. I used to have karaoke birthday parties the last 15 years and see other my favorite DJs kind of at other venues, things like that. But I haven't done as much of that one lately. But I guess especially during the pandemic, I had even more time for hobbies for a while. So I spent a lot more time outdoors, which really kind of helped keep my mental and physical health strong and my motivation strong when things were tougher.
Right. Now, getting back to director for hire, I just had a thought about that. You could potentially go anywhere, right? Like when it's open to do such, I'm not talking about during the pandemic, of course.
Oh yeah, no, that is one really great thing about directing, is that I've been before the pandemic, I would combine travel and work quite a bit. So I directed a web series in Germany, several episodes that was called Dragonfly or Libella, and then also those episodes later got combined into a feature film, Mission 92. So they got kind of re-edited into a feature film. Mm-hmm. And then I've also been flown to Mexico to teach for 4 months at a university there, teach filmmaking. And I've gotten flown to Toronto to teach youth how to tell stories about seniors and elderly folks' homes. So it's been great. Before the pandemic, I would, at least 1 or 2 times a year, I would get flown somewhere, whether it was for camera or teaching or directing. That was definitely a big perk of the job. Yeah. In my 20s, I would work really hard and then go traveling for a while. And then in my 30s, it was all work and travel combined mostly, which was nice to kind of be an ambassador for art or an ambassador for learning. Right. I guess, in the case of festivals, more ambassador, but maybe a better word would just be like, a visiting artist to make something in a different, exciting environment.
Right. Well, I think that's it for time. But it's really, I just find it so interesting. I love what you do. I love hearing what you do, and I'm sure the audience does too. Now you have a website or what's it?
Yes. So it's just my full name.com.
Okay.
Like KryshanRandel.com. KryshanRandel.
.com. Yeah.
So it has a mixture of some of my passion projects and some of my corporate work and things like that.
Okay, I'll make sure that's included when I do the rendering. Okay, and thank you. Just stay there while I say goodbye to the audience. I hope you enjoyed listening to Kryshan. Sorry, I screw people's names up all the time. Joe. Kryshan Randel, and I'm going to include his website. And if you want to get a hold of him, that's the way you can do it. You're also on Facebook, right? And anywhere else? Are you?
It's Instagram too. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So thank you for everybody for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of your day. And peace out, everyone.
A sense of community. Chilliwack's a place to be, a sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's a place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's a place to be, you'll see.